Hi guys, I'm Jazz, the Ever After Reader. Thanks for coming to my channel. If you haven't already, please go back and watch part 1 of this review. This is a 2-part review. I didn't realize that in order to upload long-form content, I needed 100,000 subscribers first. So I made the mistake of doing one long video. I've had to chop it up and edit it quite a bit. And even then I couldn't get it down to just the 15-minute mark. So pause this, go back and watch part 1. If you just finished it, thank you so much for coming back and finishing up with me. I pick up at the beginning of a totally new train of thought, so don't worry, there's not any context missing if you've already watched part 1. So here you go, here's the rest of my review, and thanks so much for coming back. And then there's this huge bombshell that's just dropped in there, comes out of nowhere. They go to prom, and finally Autumn has the feelings of love or romance or whatever. Like she finally feels it and tells him. So then they graduate. The day after graduation, she's sitting out on her front porch and is like waiting for him to come pick her up. And she thinks like, okay, it's gonna happen. I have to I've got to keep my word, right? Because I told him this is when it's gonna happen. And then he gets there and he tells her, oh my goodness, it's so cringy. He tells her the night before prom, he hooked up with her best friend, Sasha. I read that and I literally was like, I had to close the book. It took my breath away. I was like, are you kidding me? And then he's like, okay, so he does that, right? He's been pressuring her all these years. The day is starting to come nearer and nearer and nearer. It's like just a couple weeks away. And instead he hooks up with her best friend the night before prom. And then at prom, she finally feels something for him. And he is like, I promise I'll never hurt you. When he already did the night before, totally betrayed her. Her mom and Finney's mom are like, okay, you've got to reconnect with Finney. Just go out and hang out with Finney for a day and see how that is. So they go and hang out and she starts feeling better. And then she kind of realizes how fake all of her friends are, and that Finney was really a true friend all along. I don't know. It just it happened too fast. It was we're gonna hang out one day and then now everything's back to normal. I've left Finney out for a while. Time to come back to him. Their last year of high school, they have a class together where they have to partner up with somebody in the class to play sports with all year long. So they end up being partners. And this is one place where they can talk and kind of rekindle a friendship. But this whole time you still don't know what happened between them. I went to find where it is. It is page 247. Look at where that is. That is so near the end of the book that you find out what happened between them. And you find out that it was 4th of July in their junior high year. And he tried to kiss her out of nowhere. And it really shocked her and she wasn't ready for it. But then they never talked about it. I don't know. You could have said that way earlier in the book and then had a much more interesting book about, I don't know, her wrestling with her feelings with that or having her confront him. No, everything happens at the end of the book. So now you're cramming a whole book's worth of events into the last quarter of the book. Now Autumn is writing again, and she's writing a novel, and she's furiously typing, and Finney convinces her please let me read it. So she's okay, you can read my book. And then he storms in after hours or like a day of reading or something, nonstop. And he storms in and he's like, why didn't you ever tell me that, like, blah, blah, blah. I think it's like he's confronting her about the kiss, or confronting her about like her having feelings or something. And then she's like, well, why did you kiss me? And they start arguing. And then the argument turns into like this furious makeout session. Now, okay, I'm a person who I just like to skip over that in books. It just makes me feel really awkward and weird. Like I am intruding in on something very personal. Not my thing to read that stuff in books. So I'm like skimming through, and this is taking a while. And then it turns into like, oh, Finny, I don't want you to stop. I want you to go further. And he's like, oh no, I don't have anything, right? And she's like, I don't care, Finny, I love you. And so then it happens, right? Mind you, Finny still is dating his high school girlfriend. She's away in Europe. She's coming back the day after. He's supposed to pick her up from the airport. Autumn has just been horribly betrayed by her boyfriend and her best friend. And she goes and she does that to another girl? Like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with this author? Like, oh my goodness. Like everybody's just making terrible decisions. And then he goes and he's like, okay, I still have to pick up my girlfriend and I have to end things with her. And she's like, oh, okay, well, I'll see you when you get back. He leaves. She goes to bed. There's a knock at her bedroom door in the middle of the night. The door opens and she's like, Finny, is that you? And it's her mom. And her mom just goes, oh, Autumn. And it's really sad. And you know what happened. So then chapter ends. Next chapter, she describes how he died. You guys, this is so terrible. This is the worst part of the book. Okay. So he picks her up. They're arguing in the car. They get in a car crash. The girlfriend is not wearing her seatbelt. So she flies through the windshield, lands on the asphalt, and is somehow fine. Finny was wearing his seatbelt because he's a good boy. And so he unbuckles his seatbelt. He's totally fine. He gets out of the car, runs over to check on her. And then in my mind, I'm like, oh, shoot, he gets hit by a car, huh? Like how tragic. No, he doesn't even get the decency of that demise. He goes to check on her. He kneels down and puts his hand in a puddle of water. And poor Finny, what he doesn't know is that a power line somewhere got cut and fell down and is this loose electric cord in this puddle of water. So he sets his hand in the puddle of water, instantly gets electrocuted and dies. And that's it. That's how he goes out. So then, in the next chapter, after you find out about that horrible, horrible thing, Autumn is basically writing her suicide note. Okay, so she sneaks into Finny's house, goes up to his room, and decides she's gonna end things there, and leaves a note on the door that is like, look, if you're reading this note, it's too late. Just call the police. Don't come inside. And then the chapter ends. And then in the next chapter, she wakes up and she's in the hospital and she's all bandaged up. And she's like, oh, darn. I guess that didn't work. I don't know why, But this is like the first thing the nurse asks when she wakes up after all of this. She's like, oh, when did you have your last menstrual cycle? And she can't remember because obviously. So she can't remember. So then the nurse leaves and then comes back and is like, oh, hun, this is like a routine test. You got to take this test. Doesn't even say what the test is. Like, Kate, we know that it's a pregnancy test. Can you just say it? I don't know. These are the things, you guys, that just irritate me. It's not mysterious. Just say it. And then she takes the test and the book ends with her waiting for the test results. So, okay, when I read books that are this bad, I like to go onto Goodreads, right? To see like, am I missing something? What did other people think about this book? None of the reviews had anything of substance. It was just like, I cried so much. Like, okay, yeah, I get it. I like a good cry in a book. This was not one of those. This was just like a disaster of a book. So you have 90 pages of stuff happening. And they're not like full pages either, right? Like you have a lot of pages like this, or like really short chapters where it's like a page or a couple of pages. Like, see, okay, 77, and then that's the end of the chapter, right? Like there's a lot of empty space here. So even saying 90 pages is like really generous. She could have expanded so much more, really got into the characters. She's not a bad writer. Her writing style was engaging, right? That's what kept me reading. But there was just a lot of cliches. There were a lot of missed opportunities. Yeah, tragic. So that was a great disappointment this year. That was a lot, guys. Thanks so much for sitting through all of that. Let me know what you thought if you read this. Is it on your to be read list? Let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Let me know if you want me to do more rants like this. I really enjoyed it. It was so cathartic. I will definitely do some like positive reviews coming up because I love talking about books that I love just as much, right, as books that I hated. Anyways, thanks again for sticking around. I hope to talk to you again soon. Bye.